with the executive director, Dr. Whitson, at California Association of School Counselors, and she is phenomenal, and she's been such a great partner. And when we asked her, like, hey, we're getting a lot of questions around PPS school counselors and documentation, like, who should we go to? She immediately mentioned you, Rachel. She said just how phenomenal the work is that you've been doing in Redondo Beach. And I'll say, like, it's been really inspiring reading your slide deck and doing the run through that we did a couple weeks ago on your presentation because you are doing really phenomenal work down there. And so we just could not be more pleased to highlight your presentation today.
Thank you so much. As you know, this is also new for all of us. So we're just kind of doing the best that we can in Redondo. I'm honored to present, but we still, of course, have a long way to go. So, yeah, but this is where we're at right now. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can somebody give me a thumbs up if you can see it? Takes a minute to load. Yay! Okay, sounds like it's up. All right, so I'm presenting from Redondo Beach on behalf of our school counselors billing on the fee schedule. We're part of cohort 3, so this was our first year participating. All right, so a little bit about me. I went to UCSB. I was in the research department for psychology. I also worked for the Federal Bureau of Prisons in drug and alcohol and behavior modification and on the suicide prevention and hostage negotiation teams. I'm also a FEMA and American Red Cross crisis first responder for mental health. I've been a school counselor since 2007, middle school, high school, college wellness. It's not that I don't like little kids. I just haven't had the opportunity to be in elementary school yet. I graduated in 2007 with my master's in counseling and then obtained my LPCC in 2014 from LMU as well. I have been a professor or lecturer for school counseling programs since 2012. I've taught every class in all of the graduate programs that you can imagine. And I'm currently the district counselor for Redondo Beach Unified School District. Nice to meet you all. Let's jump into it. Okay, so I'm in Redondo Beach. Where is that? We're like 10 miles south of LA. We're right on the beach. We're not a very touristy location. Our beaches are pretty wide open. It's kind of like a life hack if you're used to going to Santa Monica or something, and there's like a lot of people there. We have about 10,000 students. One huge comprehensive high school has 3,000 students, two middle schools, eight elementary schools. A fun fact, we were founded in 1905, and Charles Lindbergh, the first man to fly across the Atlantic Ocean, went to a Redondo Union High School. We actually have a museum on our campus that actually houses all of the Letterman jackets through the year, the cheerleading outfits through the year. They'll do, big, let's show all the newspapers, what happened when people were voting in the 50s and just things like that. It's really, really cool. So there's a lot of pride, a lot of community pride, and a lot of people who live in Redondo stay in Redondo. We've got grandparents, parents, people are just very, very proud of this community. And a little bit too about our demographic data. In case you are curious, I'm going to read this because I couldn't memorize it. We've got about 40% white students, 25% Hispanic, Latino, 15% Asian Pacific Islander, about 16% students who identify as two or more races, 3% African American, 4% English learners, and about 15% socially economically disadvantaged. We also have a crisis center in a domestic violence crisis center in one of our neighborhoods. So we get quite a few families, mainly women and children, kind of coming through hiding. It's in like a secret location. And we do service them through our schools. So how did we get the fee schedule off the ground? I think we're doing an okay job. There's lots of room for growth, but what did we do? We, of course, incorporated the counselors from day one, right? So we brought them in January when we knew we were going to be cohort 3. We talked about the different possibilities for billing and what it looks like, and we settled on selecting an EHR, and our counselors voted on the electronic health record that we chose. Then they hired me. So I moved from my wellness center role, running a wellness center, into this district position. Then we started our trainings mainly on the documentation, which is what you're all here for, but also clinical trainings, right? Because that is a big issue. A lot of counselors are just like, Oh my gosh, I don't remember how to do this. So going into things and like teaching them again, like how do you do an ACEs screener and all the different things. So a lot of trainings this year, and we're going to be doing even more next year. So to talk about some of those trainings, the first one was like, what is this? It's like, you guys can bill now. And they're like, what are you talking about? And why should we do this? So we're talking about how like counselors are the boots on the ground. They're the first, we're usually the first person who really realizes, other than savvy parents, right? They're like the first person who really realizes like this child needs support. They need more support than what they're getting now. And the counselor is usually that person that kind of brings the parent in, the resources, connects everything, and then is with that child for several years as their main support system at the school campus that they're at. So as we know, kids like usually the first new contact for mental health is usually in schools. So it's natural, right? So we explain to them like, hey, if you can get money back for services that you provide, then we can hire more of you and then we can help more students and we can do more things and better outcomes for our kids. And everybody is excited about that. At least I would hope so. Our counselor concerns were like, hey, our principals, our administrators have told us to focus in on academics, and now I've just been doing that for so long, I don't feel prepared anymore to do any of the mental health stuff. We also have too many clerical duties, too many administrator duties. I can't get to do those support things that I want to do for students. I can't run groups. There's nobody else to do these clerical tasks. It has to be me. And then, hey, I'm already overwhelmed with the sheer amount of work. I cannot take anything else on, no matter how small it is. Right. So those are the big things that we're hearing, the concerns from the counselors. So how do we address this, right? So we were like, okay, we really have to talk to the administrators. Like, what are you telling your counselors and what are you having them do, right? So we went through counselor roles and responsibilities. What should it look like? We have a strategic plan. How do the counselors execute on that plan? And then training administrators on CYBHI, what it is, what it means for our students, what it means for our school district. We also went through and we did analysis of all of our counselor tasks by school because it's different at every school. You know how different it is, right? And so we said, hey, we're committed to allocating resources from billing to align the counselor duties with the Ask a National model with fidelity, like really dialing in on you doing what you're supposed to be doing and not doing a lot of clerical tasks, but really serving our students like you should be, right? And then also a district commitment, like, hey, we're going to bill and then we're going to hire more wellness counselors. We're going to hire more counselors. We're going to onboard wellness coaches. We're going to do all these things that we know that we can do with this money to make everything hopefully feel more possible. And so this was, it's not my best work, but like this was just like kind of out the gate, right? This is like one of the first things I created. And this was so I could show the principals like, hey, if you're having your counselor schedule all of your SST meetings or schedule all of your parent teacher conference, whatever, right? Like you can have somebody else do that. And then your counselor can run the executive functioning group we need them to run. So we're talking to them about like what can we bill and like kind of the guesstimating, like about how much could we get from doing these services. So I basically sort of went through all the services and said, hey, ballpark figure, this is about how much you could bill for these things. And principals were shocked, actually. Like administrators were surprised. They were like, I had no idea. And so then they realized they kind of needed to start, instead of sending their counselors constantly to admin designee for IEPs, maybe I should have my counselors, doing the groups or the individual or whatever the support needs to be. Um, so this is where the concerns came in with the billable services. The counselors were like, we don't know how to do this. Like, we don't know how to do this screening tool, or we don't know what this even is. Like PHQ-9, I learned that in grad school. What is that? I haven't done that in years. So there was just a lot of just, we don't know, right? And then how do we know that this is real? Can you guys see me? Okay. Sorry, I felt like I froze. So how do we know this is real? We had a lot of people that were like, I'm not qualified to do this. I don't work in like a hospital. I'm not a health professional. So I think I'll get in trouble. Right? So we heard that, right? And then also there's no time to complete these services because our administrators are just throwing things at us. So again, had to go back to the drawing board and talk to everyone. So We surveyed the counselors. We were like, okay, what additional professional development do you need? Where do you not feel comfortable? So we can help you get comfortable, right? And then we provide those targeted PD in those areas. Then, of course, we went through all the DHCS documentation, all of the information, and other school districts. We talked to other districts. Are you doing it? Is it fine? Okay, look, hey, they're doing it. It's fine. No one's gotten in trouble. So just kind of bringing that information into them. And then also those targeted meetings, going school to school, meeting with administrators, meeting with counseling teams, and making sure that we have those counselor administrative agreements done at the start of the school year. So this is just a little example of a little crosswalk thing that I did at one of our trainings where I was like, hey, you're doing a 504 evaluation. Our counselors, fortunately, right, do 504s in our school district. And so at first, we were hearing you can't do anything, can't bill anything 504, but since it is general education, we found out that we can, right? And so it's exciting for them because we could go over, hey, all the things you're doing in a 504 evaluation actually like very similar to doing a psychosocial. So I created this little Venn diagram where I can show them, hey, here's the overlap. Here's what's unique about a 504. Here's what's unique about a psychosocial, but they're already doing those things. So just dialing in on making sure that they're gathering, the social and family dynamics piece, right? Because that can be kind of a hot button topic to ask questions about. Also, environmental stressors like, does anyone consume alcohol in the home and like how often, right? Like those are not questions that like counselors usually ask. So we kind of went over like, how do you really get all of that information together to really do a psychosocial as you're doing the 504 evaluation process? Because then that will help us actually meet their needs better because we'll have more of the pertinent information. So, medical necessity. So, of course, we want to dial in on the early screening and detection. We do 2 screeners per school year at our schools, and that really helps us figure out which students need the most support. When we're determining medical necessity, we have to go student by student, right? Unfortunately, there's a lot of students that have really unique needs and that we hear about, right, from professionals, from staff, from parents. We want to prevent mental health symptoms. We want to help ameliorate or alleviate mental health symptoms, reduce those symptoms, want to address them. And we also want to support students who definitely have a diagnosis. So all of our kids, right, with a 504 plan that have ADHD, anxiety, depression, they have that diagnosis. But then we also have kids that, they're not getting out of the car each morning, right? That school refusal, that like they have no diagnosis, but like clearly they have symptoms, right? So those are those things the counselors are really seeing and then making note of those things. And then what data do we use to determine the medical necessity? Well, of course, we're going to document it in our EHR, but you can get evidence from so many different areas. The main one when I was a middle school student would be like directly from the students. Right? They're like lining up outside your door, like, help me, right? They're middle school, right? So, student report, of course, referrals from staff, teachers, parents, guardians, sometimes friends, right? I'm worried about my friend. Observation, right? You see that kid out on the playground that like cannot stop hitting people, like whatever the case may be. The surveys and the screenings, and of course, a record review. Especially, we get those new students coming in and we're looking through like a little like Sherlock Holmes detective trying to figure out like what have they been through, right? So those are all different areas that you can get that information from. And then we've got to collaborate, right? I'm the ORP for my district. It's 10,000 students. I don't know every student. I'm not going to know every single student and be like, yes, they can, you know what I mean? I need to collaborate with the counselors. So the counselors are the ones who are really seeing the issue and they're like, okay, we're going to have something that we have got to address here. There's a budding mental health issue. There's a social emotional issue, whatever the case may be. So they're logging everything that they're, experiencing with these students into the EHR, and then I'm reviewing everything to make that medical necessity determination. And what's really interesting to me, because I was like, well, is this gonna like really cut down, like for like classroom lessons? I'm like, is this gonna really like cut down on the amount of billing we can do? And then I was like, actually, probably not. Because I don't know if you saw like the latest Cal Matters research that came out last month, but they said in California it's 94% of youth ages 14 to 25 report experiencing regular mental health challenges or concerns in an average month. So I did the math and I was like, that's almost 5,000 of our students. We'll be fine. We can bill for at least 5,000 secondary students. I'm not worried, right? But I know people are stressed about that. So just like so you know. And then we have the logging services. So we went with the Care Solace EHR. There's a lot of different EHRs. Apologies if you can hear like a siren in the background. Sorry about that. Anyway, so we trained our counselors how to log into the electronic health record. And luckily for us, we provide feedback on it and it's constantly changing based on our feedback. So we're not just trying to fit our needs like a square peg into a round hole. We can be like, actually, we need this. And then they'll add it for us, which is very helpful. And so that replaces our previous documentation strategy that we used to use, where we used to log in our PowerSchool SIS, very limited amount of information. And now we can actually kind of dig in and like log a little more things. So it's pretty exciting. But one thing to know is that we're not just logging our social emotional and our mental health. We're also logging everything that's academic and college and career counseling that's provided, so that there's kind of a one-stop shop for all of the logging, and our counselors aren't like, let me log this college stuff here and let me log the social emotional stuff here. Doesn't make any sense for our counselors. They can't have like 5 different places to log. So they're billing claims on their mental health, social emotional, but they're logging everything that's academic and college career as well. So we have one place where we can house all those records. Also, it's kind of helpful to know if a kid has been failing all of their classes for 3 years and not coming to school, because that also looks like a mental health symptom, doesn't it? Right? In addition, our counselors are still keeping their sole possession records, their memory jogger notes. They carry around their little notebooks that they take home. Those things they write all kinds of stuff in, and it's not, something that can be, court ordered, which is very helpful. So they were really worried because they were like, I don't know what to log. I don't have time to log. Do I have to log in 2 places? Right? That was a deal breaker. That was a hard deal breaker. And then I don't feel comfortable asking families for insurance information. Do I have to put that in? And then what if I write something wrong? I want to do a good job. Okay. They don't want to get it wrong. They're so worried. And I love that. Right. So let me just show you. This is kind of how it works for us. So we have a section where we're logging an intervention where we look at the students' challenges. And when we look at the students' challenges, we can select from a series of academic challenges that we can select. We can also select from various mental health and well-being challenges. We can also select from physical health challenges. This is where self-harm is housed, trauma. We can also log social and relational, right? So cyberbullying, things like that, victim of bullying, all those things that are really important. So this is kind of how you can kind of see how the counselors are starting to think about all these things. And at first, Care Solace was like, Rachel, like your counselors are selecting a lot of challenges. And I was like, yeah, yeah, they are. That's what we're seeing, this is all real, believe it or not. And they were like, okay, I guess that's fine. And then we log the interventions. So we have the challenges, and then what did we do? Right? What did we do? So this is what the meeting one looks like. Obviously, like an IEP, if they have special ed, like that's not billable, but we just want to know, did you go and stuff. And then you can see like assessment and evaluation, like did they do an ACEs screener, right? What did they do here? Excuse me, substance abuse screening, those types of things. You can also see case management. That's not like a very big one, but there's so much case management, right? There's so much that counselors do. So it's really helpful to know, who are they talking to? They're talking to, the psychiatrist, they're talking to the IOP PHP program, residential. I mean, talking to everybody, teachers, parents. And then you can also see the social, emotional, and behavioral. So you can see all of the safety planning that goes on, group counseling, kind of all of these things are in here. So they can select all those things. And then they get to the actual where they write the narrative, right? So is this a tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 intervention? How long was the session? What type of session was it? And then they can add their notes. And I'll show you a sample of kind of like what some of the notes look like. So here is an example of high school. So this is a group counseling intervention. Here are the challenges, and then the session type's group, 45 minutes long. And this was a student who was referred because people were like poking fun at her for her body. And then she was feeling terrible and it was horrible. Anyway, so she did great in this group. She participated and it was wonderful. And so this is just like a sample at the bottom of sort of like what the snapshot of the group looked like. We're not having counselors do like a full set of soap notes in here and dropping them in. And then we're also not having them be like really brief and be like social emotional group or whatever. You know what I mean? Like we want to kind of know like what did you what were the issues, like what did you cover? Did they learn any skills? Did they do any processing? Like what happened, right? So this is a group. Then we have, this is a sample of middle school, a quick individual counseling. So a parent referred this kid. They had several academic and social emotional concerns. So this was kind of that first little like, hey, feel out meeting, like, hey, how you doing? What's going on? What's happening in class? Let's talk time management. Let's talk about what's happening with you socially. Let's discuss some coping strategies to deal with those things. So that's kind of that first, like, and like, let's set up those regular check-ins and those regular meetings and get some stuff going. So that's what a little 15-minute one looks like. And then our last one is the elementary school. You can see this was a lesson. And this is a crisis prevention. We do a full grooming prevention, grooming and sexual assault prevention with all of our elementary school students, early and later in elementary. We're rolling also that out in middle school. And so this was a safety lesson about recognizing, dangerous situations, physical reactions, how to recognize in unsafe situations, safe and unsafe secrets. And so in this case, right, not every single kid in the class would like have, be billed, but you have kids that have undergone traumas, that have themselves been sexually assaulted or had different issues, and all of those kids would qualify, because they're being further supported with their mental health concerns. And then addressing the counselor concerns, right? Again, so we gave them 20 paid hours to log outside of school, hourly rate with benefits. And we said, hey, you don't need to worry about logging in school. We're going to pay you to log outside of school. Just get your logs in, okay? And then all of our counselors log only in the EHR. And it talks to our student information system, but not in like a HIPAA violation way. So I think we nailed it. I hope we did. I think we did. And then I went to every single PTA, talked to all of the parents, did lots of big events where I could tell the parents about this program and get them to add their insurances and spread the word. And then we also created a tool in our student information system that can gather all of that insurance information and inform consent during the annual registration process. And then I also went over, hey, like everything that you're submitting as a claim, I'm going over as an ORP, right? And if I get it wrong, like, I'm sorry, but I think I'm gonna get it right, so just like trust me on this. And then if I see something that's incorrect, I just send the note back. I'm all, hey, you need to add this or you need to whatever, right? So I send the note back and then they fix it and then they learn and then they do better next time. So that's been really nice for all of us. And so this is what this looks like when it goes into our two-way integration system. So Power School, right? 2 thumbs down. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, Power School, fun to work with. So this is our two-way integration system. So basically what happens is just like that bucket, right? Like you selected at the top the mental health and well-being, and then what was it? A social, emotional, behavioral. So you can see this. And so this just comes through. It just pushes over from Care Solace, EHR, into Power School so that if an administrator, they've got a kid in front of them that's melting down, having, whatever, just got in a fight, whatever, they can quickly be like, oh, this kid has a relationship with their counselor. I think I'm going to bring them in to help de-escalate, right? And that's kind of how we use those notes within the school system. We don't want a bunch of people reading counseling notes because they're confidential, but we also want people to know, like, hey, this kid has been receiving support and I can take them to their counselor and they can help them right now, right? And so, like, that's really important to us. Also, as a counselor, like, there might be 5, 10 other counselors, and you might be doing a risk assessment on a kid that's not on your caseload, you don't know. And you're like, well, let me look at past history. You can look on this real quick and then be like, oh, let me go into Care Solace and really do a deep dive so I can see how there have been previous attempts or other safety plan or what's been done already, right? So I can support this kid. And then our intake system. So it's not going to be like the traditional sit down for an hour and a half and be like, let's go over everything in your life, right? So this is a school intake system. And so it's a lot of stuff we gather at our all student annual registration. So our informed consent and confidentiality, all of that is that's part of our annual registration. We also, contact information and emergency contacts are updated at that time. And we also get consent to bill and our insurance information, all as sort of a one-stop shop. Then we have our biannual social emotional screener. So we really look at social support systems, sense of belonging, mood, sense of well-being, protective and risk factors. And then we go through and we can code all of those students and figure out who are our students that we really need to give more services and supports to. Then we also have our individual staff, parent, and friend. The friend referral is important. The presenting problem, the objective problem, the health and educational background, and then the kind of mental status exam and appropriate screeners. So this is kind of like how everything is done kind of bit by bit. We kind of get an umbrella, everything at once, then some more, and then of course some more. So this is sort of on the continuum. And again, we're not just assessing for mental health needs, right? We're meeting with students, we're talking about academic needs, future plans, career aspirations, colleges, all of those things. So counselors are doing a lot and getting that holistic, kind of comprehensive picture. And then last but not least, thank you so much for your time. And I would love to take any questions that you have.